Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight it is February 24th, or 20, yeah, 24th, 11 and 42 p.m. Eastern, and we're doing live Celtics Talk Radio post-game chat with Igor and Danny. Toronto Raptors defeated tonight Boston Celtics in Toronto for the third time this season, 107-97. The game was really bad one for the Celtics, and the game was very important. So practically we could say that this is pretty much the top loss for the Celtics. And you know why this is bad loss? Because we lost from Toronto Raptors, and we needed some ground ahead of Toronto until the end of the season in order to, protect position number 2 at the Eastern Conference. The second thing why this is so bad is that this was the third win of Toronto Raptors on Boston Celtics this season. That means that Toronto Raptors are having the tiebreaker over Boston Celtics, and that means if we are tied at the end of regular season at the standings, Toronto Raptors will be ahead of us. Tonight game, we saw the playoff preview kind of, and I don't want to go deeper into analysis, just to say that according to BPI prognosis, I will find the picture in 1 minute. According to those BPI prognosis, the Celtics and the Raptors are having chances to meet in the postseason 42%. And in that potential matchup, Toronto Raptors will be, according to BPI prognosis, the favorites. So when you look the Eastern Conference, for example, the Celtics are having 32% to meet Cavaliers in the playoffs. 42% to meet Raptors. This is the most chance for both teams to meet in the playoffs. So the Celtics and Raptors have, according to BPI prognosis, they gave Celtics and Raptors 42% chance to meet in the off season. The Celtics have, for example, 32% to meet against the Cavaliers. Then I don't know, Wizards 25%, and Atlanta Hawks 17%, Pistons 29%, Bulls 27%, Pacers 25%, and Bucks only 12%. Now, when we talk about the prognosis on that potential meeting, according to PPI, and those prognoses are pretty much accurate and great, they are giving Toronto 53% chance to win this series, and the Celtics 47% chance to win the series. So practically, no matter on the home court, practically Toronto Raptors will be favorites to win the series. And You know, the chance, home game win for Toronto Raptors, 67%. Home game win for Celtics, 61%. Away game win for Toronto Raptors, 39%. Now, away game win for Boston Celtics, 33%. Playoff expected ranking, 11 for Toronto, for the Celtics 16. BPI ranking, Toronto 6, Boston number 8. BPI ranking. Now the chances to win the series in for Toronto and the Celtics, the chances Toronto to win in 4 are 7%. Celtics 4%. The chances Toronto to win the series in 5, 11%. The Celtics 13%. The chances to win the series in 6, 22%, and for the Celtics 11%. The chances to win the series in 7 games for Toronto 13%, and for Celtics 20%. Now this is interesting, and Daniel, so practically they are saying that Boston is having the chance to win, highest chance to win the series in 7, and only if we have home court, with home court chances to win 61%, and now if Toronto has home court advantage, they have 67% to win the series. For Toronto, they are favorable to win in 6, and the Celtics are favorable to win in 7. And we will be favorites only if we have the home court. Now look at the brand new updated standings at the Eastern Conference. Boston Celtics now still number 2 at the Eastern Conference, but only 1 game less in the losing column than Washington Wizards, and 3 games less in losing column, which is what is important, than Toronto Raptors. Washington Wizards, despite tonight's loss against Philadelphia 76ers, are breathing down to our neck, and the Cleveland now has 4 games advantage over Celtics, and 6 games over Washington, and 7 games over Toronto number 4, and 8.5 games over Atlanta number 5. Now Cleveland number 1, 71%, 40 games and 16 losses, 71%. Boston's 37 and 21, 64%, 4 games away from Cleveland. Washington 34 and 22, 61%, or 6 games away from Cleveland. Toronto number 4, 34-24, 59%, or 7 games away from Cleveland. And Atlanta, like I said, 8.5 games away from Atlanta. So the Celtics played 58 games in the season, with 24 games left in the season. The Celtics are 4 games away from Cleveland, and 2 games ahead of Washington, and 3 games ahead of Toronto. It will be the 3 teams race for position number 2, 3, and 4. The Boston Celtics are having the easier schedule out of those 3 teams, I must say. Boston is playing against some bad teams, non-playoff teams, under 50% teams, and Toronto and Washington are playing twice with each others, and Boston is playing twice with the Cleveland, for example, but again, they are playing with more teams that are below 50%. And I will stop there, and I will allow my partner Daniel Camacho tonight to studio techniques, everything. By the way, to tell you guys, this is live post-game video chat. You can find us at Twitter, STR capital letter Celtics Talk Radio, Instagram Celtics Talk Radio, Celtics Talk Radio Facebook page, We Believe Green Celtics Fans Forum Facebook page. Also, you can listen our shows, radio shows at the iTunes, at blogtalkradio.com, and you can support us, of course, and you can listen those episodes on demand.
Okay, so it looks like Igor's internet might have gone out. Igor?
Can you hear me? And again, you can listen to those episodes if you log into our YouTube channel, official YouTube channel, and subscribe and listen to those chats. This is chat number 7. Danny, start with your impressions about the game and about everything that I said. I made playoff prognosis according to BPI between the matchup Toronto and Celtics.
Well, unfortunately, this is a game that many people we've seen in our group already are blaming it on one thing, which is the fact that the Celtics opted to stand pat at the trade deadline yesterday. And deep down, in my opinion, that's part of the reason why we lost this game is the fact that Danny Ainge didn't do nothing to replace the guys that sit on the bench doing absolutely nothing to get guys that could have improved and made this roster. Guys like, for example, Tyler Zeller could have been sent away to try and get somebody good to help us. For example, we need a big man, and tonight was obvious as Jonas Valanciunas was again giving us problems, down low, getting a bunch of offensive rebounds and putting it in. Raptors were taking advantage of attacking the glass and, getting a bunch of easy layups. The moment that Amir Johnson and Al Horford, for the most part, were taken out of the game because of the fact that we continue to go with the same lineup that Brad Stevens has opted to have, since the beginning of the season, which is nothing but 3 bigs, and then Jonas Jerebko being the so-called 4th big, even though he's really a small forward. But on top of that, we also have the fact that once again, we were missing a few players. Yeah, the Raptors were missing Kyle Lowry, we were missing Avery Bradley tonight, and we were missing Gerald Green, which, Gerald Green has been one of the main guys off the bench for us as of late. So that really hurt the bench. And then the most important thing, in my opinion, was also the officiating tonight. We saw the officials looked like technically they might have had too much time off during the All-Star break because it looked like they didn't know what the heck they were doing tonight in this game. We saw some pretty bad calls that even, instant replay actually shows how terrible the officials were when it came to them making their decisions. And I think deep down the officials actually choked under the pressure of having to deal with the audience out there in the Air Canada Center, knowing what was on the line. If the Celtics end up winning this game, then the head-to-head tiebreaker gets negated, and it comes down to the division record, which the Celtics would be ahead right now in that case. So odds are it's the Celtics who would walk away with the tiebreaker if that was to happen. So they knew technically the fans were aware of what this game meant and how important it was to both teams. And the fact that you could be having so many bad things taking place in this game, players like Marcus Smart having to yell in an official's ear timeout 3 times before the official actually recognizes, oh, you're calling timeout, and then makes the call and then has to tell Marcus Smart to calm down after Smart is, pissed off, like telling him what the heck took you so long to actually, are you deaf or something? Why did it take you so long to actually hear us? They did the same thing to Brad Stevens when he was calling timeout from the sideline, and they ended up, waiting until the Celtics nearly ran out of time on the shot clock, basically, before finally calling it. You had that. I'm sure. I know that you basically weren't able to watch the first half because of something that you were up to. So I ended up doing the first half coverage before you came in. But you had the issue with Damari Carroll and Isaiah Thomas in the first half, where Damari Carroll was basically body to body with Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas, was trying to go for a layup as there was nobody else ahead of him. So Carroll was the only one that could really stop him, and Carroll wrapped his arm around Isaiah Thomas's, right arm, and then literally shoved Isaiah Thomas to the ground, while also putting his left foot in front of Isaiah Thomas, causing Thomas to, fall. And the officials, ended up making the foul call. Thomas got up and immediately went after Carroll along with Jay Crowder and Jaylen Brown. And, Crowder was trying to point to the officials like saying, that he's the one you should be trying to go after. We had several players basically try to get in between the two parties. The coaches, trying to keep their guys on the benches so like that nothing else would be called. And sure enough, DeMarre Carroll, even after that, he's smiling, basically laughing about it, thinking, that it's funny that you just, literally sent our guy down to the ground, knowing that could have easily caused an injury if Thomas would have gone down the wrong way. But of course he doesn't give a crap about that, because if Thomas goes down, then our entire season pretty much goes down with him at this point. But they end up calling just a flagrant one foul against Carroll, knowing that technically that was was obvious, that was really intentional, and that he showed no remorse for it. And then yet, later on, Isaiah Thomas tries to swipe the ball out of Kyle Lowry's, should I say DeMar DeRozan's hands, and he accidentally gives him a swipe in the face while doing it because he missed the ball. And DeMar DeRozan, forget it. He went right down to the ground and acted like somebody just gave him a nice punch to the face pretty much, and stood waiting there until basically the entire Raptors, team that was on the floor got around him, and the officials had no choice basically but to look at it, because again, he's a superstar. They got to protect the stars of the league, and they call a flagrant one on Isaiah Thomas. So you're telling me someone basically getting a swipe to the face because somebody's trying to steal the ball is the same thing as somebody basically being shoved out of bounds and being tripped up by another player that's way bigger than him? If Isaiah Thomas is a flagrant one, then Carroll should have easily been a flagrant two in that case and immediately ejected from the game. And of course, they called technical fouls on Crowder, and they called a technical foul on Isaiah Thomas as well for reacting the way he did after the play was over, which technically meant the free throws that Isaiah Thomas was given for the flagrant, only one of them really mattered because the Raptors got a free throw on the other end thanks to the two technicals. So they did what they could tonight to actually try and give the fans what they wanted. The Celtics came out on fire in that first quarter and managed to go up by 17 points in the first half. But ever since that point, the moment that Carroll made that shove on Isaiah Thomas, and the officials literally showed that this game, they were going to allow the Raptors pretty much to get physical with the Celtic players, and there was not going to be any protection while they were going to protect DeMar DeRozan, at least, because he's the superstar, the big superstar of this game today, because, of course, he's viewed bigger than Isaiah Thomas is. That's the moment where the Raptors finally started getting, their confidence, and they ended up basically turning the tide of the game, and from that moment on, it was hard to stop them, but again, today I truly hope Danny Ainge saw the mistake he made by not getting at least another big man, because if you're not going to have Tyler Zeller out there trying to help you rebounding the ball in a game like this where you're going at it with Valanciunas and Ibaka, then really, what was the point of keeping Zeller when you could have gotten somebody else like an Andrew Bogut, who's a veteran player and would get respect from these officials?
Excellent stuff, Daniel. I'm checking what is going on at the Twitter community, and of course, everybody is mad because this is the tough loss, and it was 27 points turnaround because the Celtics were leading 17 points, and at the end the Raptors won 10 points. So it was practically 27 points swing, and at one moment the Raptors were having 18-2 run in the fourth quarter, and this was all created practically by DeMar DeRozan. And it was fascinating what this man could do with the ball. and it was fascinating how the Celtics tried everything to defend him, and yet he was finding the way to score. And the Celtics are obviously having issues with the guards, and especially with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. It was obviously then in those 4 games that we played against the Raptors. And yes, not having Ivory Bradley hurted us because he is the best on-ball defender, and it is sure that it is not excuse because the Raptors didn't have Kyle Lowry too, but we didn't have Green, who is one of the key scorers, I would say, lately from the bench, and we didn't have Ivory Bradley, which is the second scorer in this Celtics team. And I would say, Danny, that the Celtics are obviously having the problems defending DeMar DeRozan. Remember, we won the game against them, Boston, but DeRozan was injured. And I will read Bobby Manning's thoughts about the game. It is slightly overreaction, but majority is the truth. He said, Celtics paid the price for doing nothing. When I learned that Indiana wanted the whole boat for Paul George and Bulls weren't interested in moving Butler all that much, I excused Danny Ainge for not unboxing the fireworks. Now, my fury didn't falter while the Celtics didn't make some move to improve, especially as chief rival in Atlanta and Raptors made 2 crucial moves to patch up their defensive issues with Serge Ibaka and PJ Tucker, 2 players the Celtics inquired on. The Celts watched their competition got better and didn't do anything about it, so of course they play that team 1 day later, Toronto beating their faces. Now they swarmed Isaiah Thomas, guarding him as many teams as Ibaka set an intense tone from the jump his name, intense team protection. When the crowd lit up after he stuffed Thomas early and he raised his arms, it was a legitimate moment of turning point for the Raptors team that has been stagnant. The fact that the Celtics blew 16-plus lead, another one, against the Raptors was symbolic of how they sat around and folded to their competition at the trade deadline. This is an overreaction to the game, I will admit it. But it is not also wake-up call. I don't know if it's not the wake-up call. I don't know what it is. Ainge said he believes in his team. It is time for him to show it with a move that patches the team issues in the paint. The Celts trailed by just 3, 97-94, when Tucker snuck in the paint and got an easy defensive board to shut the Celtics down for good. That's an embarrassment. With Terence Ross, Jared Sullinger, yes, I said it, and presumably Andrew Bogut available, they still have the time to make that right. It's fine that the Celtics didn't want to mortgage the future for the team, but it will be disgrace if they punt on this season to their opponents in the East. A slightly overreaction, but the truth from Bobby Manning from Celtics blog. And I will now try Danny to watch at the statistics. The statistics is saying that field goal percent, Toronto 49, Celtics 42%. It is hit or miss league. Boston was 32% for 3, Toronto 33, better. Rebounding, Toronto 41, Celtics 36. Assists, the Celtics better, 19-15, plus 4. Turnovers, 11-9 for the Celtics. Offensive rebounds, Raptors 10 and 7. The top scorers, Thomas 20 points, 6 rebounds, Johnson, and 5 assists, Thomas, and 2 steals, Young. Believe it or not. DeRozan 43 points, Tucker 10 rebounds. He dominated on the glass, which is sad. And Corey Joseph 6 assists and 3 steals. The great game for starting point guard at this very game. Before I need time to find the full statistics, and yeah, here it is. The largest lead, Celtics 17. Like I said, 27 points turnaround. Fast break points, Raptors only 2, and Celtics 7. That means plus 5 in fast break points, Celtics. Points in the paint, Celtics 34 and Toronto Raptors 52. So practically plus 18 in the paint for the Raptors. Bench points, the Celtics 35 and Toronto Raptors 25, plus 10 bench points, the Raptors. Second chance points, plus 10 for Raptors. So to sum up, the Raptors are having advantage almost every category except assists plus 4 for the Boston Celtics, and also fast break points plus 5 Boston Celtics. Practically Raptors bench destroyed our bench, sorry, my mistakes. Celtics bench was plus 10, and the Raptors destroyed the Celtics in the paint, plus 18. And the last thing is second chance points, plus 10 for the Raptors, and the rebounds, if I looked correctly, plus 5 rebounds for the Raptors, and plus 10 in the second chance points for the Raptors, including that bucket from PJ Tucker at the end of regulations on 97-94. That was practically dagger. Starting lineup, Crowder 31 minutes, 19 points plus minus 19, 6 of 12 shooting, 50%, 5 of 9 field goal, 44%, 4 of 3 free throws, 4 rebounds, 1 assist. He was good. Amir Johnson did nothing. He had 20 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 of 3 shooting, and 6 rebounds. Yeah, this is the only stuff that he did well. He tried to do something, but he was dominated on the glass by PJ Tucker. Al Horford had bad game, 8 points, and 30 minutes, 3 of 5 field goal percent, but only 5 field goal percent. The Celtics missed 16 threes, if I'm correct. No. The Celtics missed 26 threes, and Al Horford took only 5 field goal attempts and 0 threes. This is one of the problems. Jaylen Brown had great game. I would say 28 minutes as a starter, 13 points plus 3 and 2 assists, 5 of 8 shooting, 62%. The big 3 in the fourth, 2 of 4 for 3, and great game for Jaylen Brown both ends of the floor. Isaiah Thomas, not the best game of his, 35 minutes, 20 points. He was dominated again. He had minus 19. Again, plus minus is minus for Thomas. 35% shooting and 30% for 3 of 10. It was not a great game for Thomas, despite having 5 assists and 3 rebounds. Kelly Olynyk from bench, 16 minutes only, and only 3 field goal attempts. This is disgrace. 4 points, bad shooting selection, bad Olynyk playing, and not aggressive enough. Marcus Smart was aggressive, and he was great. Our motor, at the end of the game, he was trying to save us. 32 minutes, 6 of 15 field goal percent, 40%. 14%, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 19 points, but minus 15. Objection is 15 field goal attempts and 7 threes, too much. The bad shooting selection. Rozier, 17 minutes, 4 points, bad game. James Young, 2 steals, 12 minutes, 5 points, solid, but not enough. 20 points. Jordan, Mickey, and Jackson played 11 seconds. Practically, we played 10-man rotations, but we played without Bradley and Green, and Zeller didn't play at all. And Raptors were without Lowry. What is your take on statistics, Daniel?
Well, unfortunately, when it came to this whole situation with the statistics, one of the things that I'm not too thrilled about that you mentioned was the performance that we got out of Al Horford tonight. Knowing that, this game, what was on the line tonight with the tiebreaker, and knowing that technically, unlike Isaiah Thomas, who was actually out there competing in the All-Star Weekend festivities, the skills competition and the actual game itself, and then you had the Brad Stevens and the coaching staff out there as well. And the fact that, a lot of the other players, pretty much every other player outside of Thomas and Horford, had to be on edge Thursday due to the trade deadline. Horford should have been the next highest scorer on this team tonight outside, after Isaiah Thomas. There is no excuse for Al Horford to be playing 30 minutes today and then taking only 5 shots, none of them which were from the three-point line, and then going 2 for 2 from the free throws for only 8 points. Amir Johnson, okay, he only gets 2 points, and he, went 1 of 3. But when you have guys literally going the route from the bench, beating you, or even coming close, like James Young had 5, so he was only 3 points behind you. Terry Rozier had 4, Kelly Olynyk had 4, and Jerebko had 3. So when you're that close to guys like that, basically, beating you in the scoring, department, and yet you're making the most money out of everybody on this team, that is something that can't happen, especially if we expect to actually go the route of making some sort of run in the playoffs to try and attract the free agents this summer, because Danny Ainge opted not to trade for any big-name players, so he kept the salary cap money available. So Al Horford, I'm pretty upset with the way he played tonight. Other than him, the only other player I think that maybe we might actually, be able to say something about when it came to their performance today overall would probably be also Kelly Olynyk. I think Brad Stevens, played a critical role in Kelly Olynyk's, performance today. I said it in the group towards the very end of this game. Brad Stevens opted to basically let us play the type of game the Toronto Raptors wanted. He did not force the Raptors to play the game that would be best suited for us. You noticed, I'm sure, that towards the end of the game, anybody that was watching it, the Raptors went small, leaving, I believe it was Ibaka as the only one in the game at that time, the only big man, but they left one big man in the game itself, and you have Al Horford out there as your only big man available. You are in a situation where you're basically going toe-to-toe with these guys. You need to make sure you have your best shooters available on the floor at that point to try and make it not only easier for Isaiah Thomas, but for everybody else as well. The moment you start seeing Isaiah Thomas being doubled or triple teamed is the moment basically you're realizing that this team is basically scared of Isaiah Thomas like they should be, but they're not scared of everybody else. And in this case, the one player that I kept noticing they weren't scared of at all was pretty much James Young. James Young, I give him credit today. He had a pretty good performance. He didn't score much, but defensively, the boy really did some pretty good things on the floor, especially in transition.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to crunch time, I'm sorry. You got to have Kelly Olynyk in the game or Jaylen Brown, a bigger body of some sort, to actually go the route of making it where that team is going to have to think twice. If you decide to leave Jaylen Brown or Kelly Olynyk open beyond the three-point line because you want to stop Isaiah Thomas from attacking the rim, well then go ahead, because then the moment it gets to them, odds are that ball is going to be going in, especially if it's Kelly Olynyk, because I think right now we are all a little bit more confident in Olynyk nailing threes than we are Brown. But even Brown has the ability to attack the rim, and that's another thing. You saw the Raptors get us into foul trouble early in that fourth quarter because they kept attacking. Of course, the officiating again was a little bit, was a little bit off today with the way they were treating the Celtics, especially in that fourth quarter. But you have Jaylen Brown. If you're not willing to put Kelly Olynyk in there, you put Brown over Young, because Brown is going to attack the rim the same way Jeff Green and LeBron and the rest of these guys are willing to put their bodies on the line. That boy, along with Isaiah Thomas and Marcus Smart, are really the only ones that go that type of route of attacking the rim, full throttle. And if they get laid out, they get laid out, but they will accept it if it means that they're actually getting a foul call against the other team. He could have helped us get the Celtic, get that team into the penalty, and it would have meant a few more free throws, and that could have easily helped us, win this game, instead of us having to depend on so many three-pointers, especially deep ones from Isaiah Thomas, or a bunch of, desperation shots because the shot clock was about to run out because Thomas couldn't figure out what to do with it due to the fact that basically every angle he wanted was covered. So Kelly Olynyk needed to put up more today, but I think Brad Stevens can also be blamed because of the fact that he had the wrong lineup out there at the very end. You want to make it where that team is playing the game that's necessary for you, which is why Kelly Olynyk is best, because you put two big guys out there. If they basically want to stay small, you let them. Kelly Olynyk starts getting hoops up near the rim, Igor, like usual. We saw him attack the rim a few times. That means either A, they give up the layups basically and just try to match his basket for basket, or B, they take out one of their guards and they bring back someone like Valanciunas, who is not really a good free throw shooter, as we all know, and you take advantage of that. You make it where Valanciunas is the one that has to beat you instead of DeRozan or some of these other guys. So Brad Stevens, for the future, has to remember that, especially if they're missing some of their key players. You force them to play the game that basically suits you the best and your own players. You don't play them and try to beat them at their game, because you're just going to get beat like that.
Yeah. And what we have in the post-game show, the press conferences, Isaiah Thomas, PJ Tucker got them going. That's what he does. That's why they traded for him. He's the definition of tough guy. Isaiah Thomas on Carroll's flagrant. That's not a basketball play by any means. The guys who aren't factors in games do that. Horford asked if he needs more than 5 shots in the game. I think so. There is no question. Horford said he thinks the Raptors defended Thomas better in the fourth tonight than anyone else's guess. Horford said he thinks people are sleeping in the impact Tucker will have on the Raptors. Stevens pointed out Tucker and Ibaka made a big difference, letting Toronto go small, Tucker 4, Ibaka 5, while keeping physicality. Stevens calls pick and roll with Crowder as a ball handler. Okay, out of the timeout. And he bangs home 3-pointer at the end of the game. Anyway, let us recap the game a little closer. By the way, do you have, Daniel, to comment something about the statements that I...
Well, Brad Stevens is absolutely right when he talks about the impact Ibaka and Tucker are going to have. You know, we got to see it, a little bit today at the very beginning, the difference that Ibaka makes when he's the one in that, in that lineup with the rest of the starters. He is someone that he's a lot more agile than the former player they had starting with them alongside Valanciunas, Lowry, DeRozan, and Carroll, if I'm correct. He also, in this situation, is a lot more faster than what we're usually used to seeing when it comes to their big guys. So this is one guy that technically, if you can look at him, you got to look at him and basically say he is capable of doing something that's similar to what we've seen Tyler Zeller do at times, which is run up and down the court and easily get baskets in transition if you're not basically paying attention to him. That's going to make it, put more pressure and make it more difficult for Al Horford and Amir Johnson, because one of those guys is always going to have to be looking, basically, if he's behind them, they're going to have to be having eyeballs behind their heads and basically watching him to make sure that he's not running down the court already, because that's something he'll be able to do and take advantage if you're someone that's being like a tortoise technically while he's trying to be the hare and running, really fast. Tucker, it's unfortunate that Danny Ainge spent so much time trying to get Paul George and Jimmy Butler, because Tucker, there were several players, including him, that we were linked to, that we were interested in, but because Danny Ainge was focused solely on one or two players only, and he spent every last second trying to get those two players, he ended up losing the opportunity to go after anybody else. Tucker would have been a much more, would have brought so much more to this team, knowing that technically in a night like tonight, where you got no Avery Bradley and no Gerald Green in this case, you could have had the opportunity where Tucker could have come in instead of having your younger players have to show up, and he could have basically gotten you the points that you were looking for. So, and the fact that at the same time, Igor, is that the issue here is how much these guys were costing. It wasn't like these guys, that the teams were giving up a ton of assets to get Tucker, Bogut, and the rest of these other guys. A lot of these guys ended up going for, like they say, pennies on the dollar in terms of assets. Danny Ainge had exactly what he needed to get some decent players on this team to try and improve that bench. I've said it on this video chat before. I've said it in our radio show, and I've said it in the group. This team technically is really a six-man team. That's it. You got basically Horford, Bradley, Crowder, Thomas, Smart, Olynyk. Those six guys are going to have to take you to the promised land if you're a Celtics fan that really thinks we have a chance to win an NBA championship this year. It's going to come down to those six players, really nobody else, because those six players are the ones that bring it pretty much and are going to have to bring it come the playoff time. But we would have had a much more better bench if Danny Ainge would have basically said, okay, if you guys aren't, if he would have told the Indiana Pacers and the Bulls, if you guys aren't going to give me your players, just tell me now so I can focus on basically going after somebody else and let them get the offer. Put your foot down. Don't go waiting all the way to the last second and not really go the route of giving up a true serious, offer just to see these guys not come to us and then see all the other players you wanted go elsewhere, knowing that your bench as it was pretty thin and really wasn't productive. You had to rely on your starters a majority of these games to really get the job done, and now you're going to have to worry about them winning their battle even more because the benches of all these other teams just got improved more.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment later about that issue, but okay, let's finish this talk. You and me has said about 100 or 200 times when the season started, even before the season started, that this team, the way it is constructed, it is not going to be the good rebounding team. And the issue is not just that we are not good rebounding team, but we are terrible rebounding team. And we need to address to that issue not to be top 10 rebounding teams in the NBA, but not to be this terrible. You see tonight 10 second chance points, the difference in result, the 10 for Raptors. Do you think it is by accident? No. Those second chance points killed us. And we need someone, and I wanted Bogut, and I still want him, and I don't think that the Celtics will hire him. I think that he will end up Cavaliers or Warriors, sadly. I don't think that Salinger will be on Danny Ainge's radar. I think that they will cut probably Mickey or Young, potentially Mickey, and ending up signing somebody from the waivers. I hope Terrence Jones, who was released from New Orleans Hornets. Terrence Jones was the great talent couple of years ago, but he failed to fulfill his potential. He has defensive rebounding percent and rating like 20, and he fills the void pretty much. And when you talk about Tucker and Ibaka, he said on the show that Ibaka will be a great fit for the Raptors. And I still think that Ibaka would not be a great fit for the Celtics, and I stand by it. But about the Tucker, I really wanted him, and I said that this idea of potentially Celtics acquiring Jay Tucker is a great one. And Bill Simmons, ex-ESPN, tweeted something that is true. He said, quote, "I don't understand why the Celtics didn't bring in the center. Rebounding problem still exists because the Celtics have like 240 picks." And I was listening to Ainge at Thatcher and Rich show today, and he was asked the same question, and he said something like, well, we have the great team, the great chemistry. I want to play everybody out as a team. I'm happy to see the full team. Bradley will back soon, and to see what they can do. And in inquiring additional guy at the trade deadline is rarely going to work. Quote from Ainge, and he said, when the Celtics were contenders, a lot of guys were coming into my front office with the idea to bring in this guy or that guy, but it rarely worked well for the Celtics when we traded for somebody at the trade deadline. And he said if we bring in some veteran player, he would take away minutes from the young guys. He would probably maybe mess up the chemistry, and we don't feel the pressure or the dire need to do anything. To tell you the truth, Daniel, I really don't know. At this standpoint of view, when I heard him, I cannot be optimist in the issue. That means that maybe he will not do anything until the end of the season. So we must be prepared for that solution. Hearing him on Thatcher and Rich, and we will have audio, and then he will prepare us for the show 159, which will be on Thursday. I will not reveal the guest. He will be great. You will be happy, dear listeners and viewers. Anyway, let's recap the game and move on to some injury update and trade deadline talk, and we will wrap up the show. Isaiah Thomas, Boston Celtics struggled in rough 107-97 loss from Toronto Raptors. Friday night matchup between Celtics and Raptors could have been a time when NBA schedule lined up perfectly. The Celtics climbed to second place Eastern Conference with heap of wins before All-Star break, and the Raptors reached the conference finals last season and added Ibaka and Tucker. This weekend, the narrative could have wrapped around the Celtics without any roster upgrades. Now, tasting their place in the conference hierarchy against an accomplished team that loaned in the trade deadline. That was loaded in the trade deadline. Loaded up in the trade deadline. Instead, Raptors head coach Casey revealed before the game that all-star guard Kyle Lowry was out. Extended time with a wrist injury. That blew away some of the steam that could be surrounded by the game. But the Celtics still did nothing to ease concerns. They fell behind Toronto at the deadline. After racking up 17 points lead late in the first, they fell into a lake of poor composure that culminated at the team's worst fourth quarter of the season in a long time, 107-97 loss. Once again, DeMar DeRozan crushed the Celtics, 43 points, effectively losing them out with critical three-pointer. With a minute left, Ibaka and Tucker made a huge difference, and the Raptors' small quarter lineup, small ball quarter lineup, that actually featured length and physicality at most of position. They forced Boston out of its recent fourth-quarter comfort zone. Trying to match up, the Celtics decided to go small with Young and Brown next to Crowder, but nothing juiced the offense or stopped the Raptors to jack one after another jump shoots. After taking 85-77 advantage with 10 and 12 left, plus 8, Boston surrendered 18-6 run in the next 8 minutes with more turnovers 3 than made field goals 2, which is disgraceful. Led by DeRozan, Corey Joseph, and the defense, the Raptors rushed ahead of Celtics team that didn't look at all sharp down the stretch. Earlier, things looked much more promising for the Celtics. They took 17 points late in the first with strong defensive effort, a number of contributions from Brown, and even another appearance of recent helpful Young. Thomas never really got going, but still managed to score some points. Amir Johnson has plenty of energy against his former team, and maybe the most importantly, the Raptors looked like a mess without Lowry. Now, DeMar DeRozan needed 10 shoots to score 10 points over the first 10 minutes. His team committed 5 turnovers and failing to hit a single three-pointer. And, Thomas was shooting great, and, everything changed over the end of the second after a couple of chippy sequences. Boston offense stayed out. DeRozan, led it Raptors, and Ibaka, because of surge with a number of pick and pop jumpers. Early in the third, surge, Ibaka sent the Raptors crowd into frenzy, drilling a three. Even without Lowry, you could see the Raptors additions should help. Ibaka has skills and mobility in the front court. Tucker with his toughness, rebounding, and Clark in defense. The Celtics almost saved themselves when Thomas and Horford hit the bench with 5:17 in the third. They were staring at the danger zone, but Marcus Smart temporarily dragged them out over the rest of the period. He racked up 7 points, 2 rebounds, and beautiful assists. A Jay Crowder three-pointer leading 14-9 run that put Boston back in the lead. That didn't stop the ugly fourth from happening. Thomas finished 20 points, but it still spells the worst game in a long time. The Celtics give away a lead and should regret their plays. Now, Danny described that play and flagrant. Thomas and Crowder both received technical fouls. Tucker got hit by flagrant one, as well as technical. A few minutes later, the referees gave Thomas flagrant one, hitting DeRozan's face. The contact didn't look nearly intentionally as Carroll's show, but NBA has tried to crack down on contact above the shoulders in this season. After that play, the Raptors finished the second quarter 7-0 run and cutting the edge to -10. 55-45 lead at the halftime. For Boston, the rest of the game didn't go well. The thing started springly the wrong way after Thomas flagrant, but the blame can be pinned on that way. The Celtics just failed to score, and that is just the case. Danny, some closing words on the matter of this game before we move on to another topics?
Well, like I said, it's unfortunate that we ended up losing the season series, but one thing we can say is that all 4 games were pretty close, regardless of where they were played. From what they were saying, technically, all 4 games, or at least 3 of the 4, if I'm correct, the Celtics had some sort of big double-digit lead at halftime, only to end up losing that double-digit lead in the second half and losing the game. The only game that the Celtics ended up winning was the one where the Raptors were the ones that had the double-digit lead at halftime. So that's pretty funny how each and every team that's had a double-digit lead at halftime in this game has ended up blowing that lead and losing the game in the end. But we really haven't seen what this rivalry in this series could really be like, due to the fact that we haven't gotten to see both teams with all their players. You know, we're still without Avery Bradley. This was like, I think they said this is now the 21st game out of the last 22 that Avery Bradley has missed. You know, now of course they're saying that he can play in the next game Sunday. I'm hoping that's the case, because it is truly getting ridiculous with how long Avery Bradley is taking, especially knowing that he just had the All-Star break, so he was able to rest up even more, and yet you're still not ready to go after the All-Star break and after being gone the last, like month and a half or so. So, this series, if we do end up meeting them in the playoffs, it'll be interesting to see which team basically is going to get the job, done, and which team is going to get the benefit of the officiating, knowing that now both teams should have all of their, superstar players available, their entire rosters. And for us, think about it, Isaiah Thomas, we all know he's, basically the main guy. But once Avery Bradley and Marcus Smart are there together, it's going to be interesting knowing that those two are going to be the ones to lock down DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. So P.J. Tucker, in my opinion, is going to be the one that's going to be the key now in that playoff series when it comes to the late game execution, because it's probably going to be him and Isaiah Thomas going toe-to-toe with each other.
Yeah, I'm here, and I have actually, Danny, Avery Bradley kind of injury update, but you know that when we're talking about him, I mean Avery Bradley, nobody can be sure, and don't take for granted what you're reading. Again, this is reliable source. This is not some bullcrap site or something. This is like Boston Globe. But again, there has been so many setups of his return that we will never know, what will happen to him. The Celtics being cautious, and they sit Bradley against Toronto. At the trade deadline, without Celtics make a big move, Danny Ainge stressed that he wanted to see his team capable of doing when they are healthy. Despite seemingly endless string of short-term but persistent injuries, the Celtics, are the second. Boston has hoped to have Bradley back soon. As you said, he missed 21 of the last 22 games. Who will return from the strained Achilles tendon to face the next game, which is Sunday against the Pistons, 6 p.m. Eastern, in place of Auburn Hills Palace. So we will see. Prior to the team's morning shoot-around, Bradley said he believed he was 100% healthy. But the team's training staff remained reluctant to clear him out, and that's why he missed the game. And he said, they wrote down where they wanted me to be, and they want me to follow, and I don't know. I guess we are trying to meet in the middle. I will see what they want from me. After starting Thursday practice, Bradley was informed he would take part in only about 1/3 of it. He said he was hopeful he could play a few minutes against Toronto, but coach made decision no. And I really don't know what to say. Again, it is possible that he will not play against Pistons, Danny, and I don't want the Celtics fans to be upset because of it. Just forget about Bradley. When he returns, he will return. If he doesn't return, I hope that Danny Ainge will trade him in the offseason, and that's it. And now, the the last segment of our show will be kind of trade deadline talk and kind of continuation of analysis that was started in the Celtics Talk Radio regular show number 158. The Celtics trade deadline analysis, no Jimmy Butler nor Paul George as Danny Ainge stands the pat. As the trade deadline rumors cracked early Thursday afternoon, Stevens issued a reminder that while trade deadline has always been the most likely result for the Celtics. Despite all the talk about George Butler, the Celtics proved Stevens to be right. The Celtics stand the pat, and in such an inviolable position that Taylor to strike a big move left them as the East second place team. With all the same draft picks, young talents, and future flexibility they held before, they will almost certainly enter the summer with the best odds of landing number 1 overall pick this summer. They will have options to clear maximum cap space to chase Griffin and Hayward. They will still be able to chase Butler and George too, whose teams are mediocre teams. Their situation should be envied by every franchise outside of the obvious title contenders. Even those clubs must agree. The Celtics are set up for long-term success as long as they don't screw up anything badly. I'm not disappointed, Ainge said. Not at all. I can't wait to get back on the road and start scouting and getting ready for the draft and continue to watch NBA and getting ready for the playoffs. I'm very optimistic and very excited about the rest of the year. Was the prospect of big acquisitions tempting? Of course. Butler and George are young stars under big contracts beyond this season. But the Celtics want to avoid what they consider overpay in any deals. When the fallback option is 25% chance at the number 1 overall pick in the draft, the elite talents at the top, the Celtics can keep kicking their flexibility towards and seeing what options are on their way. There is risk in that, just like there would have been risk in dealing Crowder, Smart, 17 pick for Butler, if that type of package was asked from the Bulls. There was a lot of postering around this time of year, but 2 leagues sources downplayed the seriousness behind any George and Butler conversations, because any realistic trade would require the Celtics to part ways with one of Brooklyn picks. More significant discussions could be held later when the exact value of 17 pick is known. Some lottery luck could change opportunities. If the Celtics land top pick, they wouldn't need to add many players. Maybe they will stick around and draft a player like Markel Fultz or Washington point guard or Lonzo Ball. And the range of possibilities is wide. Celtics are hopefully at one point to find a shake, another real difference maker, free one way or another without cutting so deep into their core, and wouldn't need it Thursday. The idea is one day vault past the Cleveland Cavaliers and give themselves a chance against Warriors. When evaluating decisions, the goal is all the Celtics consider. A lot of teams do a lot and cost their franchises a lot of money by trying to get picks like that. We have very good fortune. The ball has bounced our way, and we need to make the most out of it. All the things we pulled away from or might have been tempted to do, we didn't do. Patience, maybe we like what we have. We like our positions and we like our future. The Celtics should feel more pressure to act one day soon. The current financial flexibility won't last forever because Thomas, Bradley, and Marcus Smart will all be up due to larger contracts after the next season. Bradley, Thomas, and Smart. At least one of them could be moved before then. Boston could even feel the squeeze this summer when trying to judge the desire for maximum cap space with the need to restock the front court that could lose several players for free. Then again, the Celtics have reinforcements in the guys like Ante Žižić and Gerson Yabusele. Žižić drawn attention, and they said the Žižić would be number 9 pick right now at the 2016 draft, which means lottery potential. In the presence, the Celtics might have gotten past in the East by Toronto Raptors, who added Ibaka and Tucker. The looming Wizards and Atlanta Hawks pick up some good help too. The Celtics will still have chance to reach Eastern Conference Finals, especially after they are all healthy but did nothing to assist their quest. That was never Ainge's primary objective. Even if the Cavaliers are banged up, they are still the favorites in the East. Warriors should be favorites in the finals. We are trying to upgrade our team, Ainge said, but it is delicate balance in short-term goals and long-term goals. Long-term, the Celtics have set themselves up to choose from numbers of quality pets. Everybody knows that, but they still need to connect on major choices from here. Protecting the future feels okay for now, but it could be either good or great, and the gap between those possibilities has never been easy to scale. The end of my staff name. Do you want to add something on the trade deadline?
Well, unfortunately, we all know how everybody was reacting in regards to Danny Ainge not making a move. You know, I can understand. We all know if you're someone that truly, looks at the value of the whole situation, you can understand why he didn't go through with any other deals, especially with what was being reported as what the teams wanted. Of course, we don't know anything about what the Bulls wanted exactly, what they might have demanded, but we've heard that the Indiana Pacers wanted three of our players, in this case, possibly three of our top 6 players, meaning Avery Bradley, Marcus Smart, and Jay Crowder, along with that 2017 Nets pick in exchange for Paul George. And Paul George, ladies and gentlemen, had already made it clear his intentions are to sign with the Los Angeles Lakers after his contract expires next season. So right now you would have to question yourself, would it have been worth giving up Avery, Jay Crowder, and Marcus Smart, plus the 2017 pick to basically get 1 year of Paul George's services? Some might say that we should have taken a risk, and maybe we could have convinced him to stay, just like the Pelicans took a risk with DeMarcus Cousins and are hoping that they can convince him to stay with them after they traded for him from the Kings. But that's a totally different situation because they gave up practically nothing to get DeMarcus Cousins. In this case, you're giving up 4 of your top assets that could be used in a deal, as you said, Igor, towards the off season, especially after the draft lottery basically has been done and we know the true results. That's another thing. The teams right now are looking at it where they're saying, yeah, you could be giving us the number 1 pick, but at the same time, you can be giving us the number 4 pick. That's the problem here. So we got to think about what's best for our team and make sure if we're giving you our superstar and we're starting to rebuild, we get exactly what we need, especially if it's not the number 1 pick, because from what I'm hearing, it's technically there's really only 2 big name players that might be superstar type potential in this year's draft. Yeah, there's a couple of good players, but only 2 that would really be, superstar type talent. And those two players, meaning that you're going to have them go 1 and 2. So if you don't get a top 2 pick, the draft pick is not really going to be worth much value, which is why those teams are pretty much saying it like that. If you could tell us that this was a guaranteed number 1 pick, then fine. But since it's possible it goes down to 4, we gotta weigh the situation. So come the trade the off season, Danny Ainge is gonna have all those assets available. The one thing Danny Ainge does lose is the situation of the expiring contracts. Contracts like Amir Johnson, for example, those contracts will all go right out the door, so he can't be trading for a team that's looking to get, salary cap space, say, for next season because of the fact that, our expiring contracts will already be gone. But overall, my issue with him is that, in my opinion, he needed to get at least the big man that we need. If you're not going to let Tyler Zeller play to try and help us with the rebounding, then you needed to get another man because Jonas Jerebko is not getting the job done right now when it comes to, rebounding the ball, especially ever since he put that, that ridiculous mask on his face thanks to the broken nose issue. He hasn't been the same since that nose injury. So that was my only issue with the trade deadline. So it's unfortunate, but people got to remember that this team right now is going to still be in a prime position to actually do exactly what we could have done just now, and you're going to have the money available to go get a max free agent. So you can do it either way. And in my opinion, if we don't go the route of actually winning, of getting, let's say if it's a first-round exit, Igor, this year, then Danny Ainge, there should be no problem for you trading away Jay Crowder, Avery Bradley, and the rest of those guys this summer if it means getting a superstar at that point. The only 2 players on this team that should be looked at as untouchable are Al Horford and Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, a couple of more things, and we are slowly going to wrap up the show. And I think that we analyzed the game really well, so as injury issues, the standings, and the trade deadline path. And we must do a couple of things more before we wrap up the show. First is Danny Ainge suggesting Gershon Yabusele could join the Red Claws at some point. Danny Ainge suggested the draft pick Gershon Yabusele could join main Red Claws at some point this year. Boston Celtics president of basketball operations, Danny Ainge, was suggesting that draft and stash player could be in the D-League later this season. Ainge said to Radio Friday, Gershon Yabusele could potentially join main Red Claws. His current team, Shanghai Sharks, concludes the Chinese Basketball Association playoffs. We may see him in Portland, Maine at some point this year, Ainge said at Thatcher and Rich. That bet would allow Yabusele, the 16th pick overall, to receive reps in the Celtics D-League affiliate without staring in the NBA clock. The big man averaged 21.5 points, 9.5 rebounds per game in China, according to Real GM, shooting 54% from field, including 38.8% from three. I just think he is the guy that's capable of being versatile in the offense and with ability to post, ability to pass, ability to play in the seams of pick and rolls, Celtics Stevens said. And then the defensively, one of the things we really like coming out of the draft was his speed. We thought his ability to move laterally at his size was huge. So whether he's playing 4 or 5, whether what the case may be, I think the more basketball, the better for him right now. And certainly, he's had a good year. Boston's other draft and stash guy, Ante Žižić, could put together promising season in EuroLeague, and he's in the chatter to be right now the lottery pick. and Austin Ainge on Ante Žižić. We are very exciting to play Ante Žižić next year. Significant interest around him, around the league. In addition to Yabusele and Žižić, Abdel Nader, the second rounder, was named NBA Development League All-Star for Maine. We are very excited about all those guys and our assets, and we are in very good position this summer. So, Danny, do you want to comment on those three guys while I'm trying to find information about the latest game that Ante Žižić put for the Rušafaka Doguš Turkey team in the loss in Madrid against Real?
Well, we've heard it from many reporters that those guys are really putting up some pretty good performances and good numbers thus far where they're playing. And, as long as they continue to do that, those guys will, end up being, pretty valuable themselves. If Danny Ainge wanted to go trading them to another team at some point this offseason, let's say to another team that decides to, completely blow it up. I know that Alex Hawkins, our co-host, was mentioning to me that before you and me came on the air here, that there's reports coming out of the Clippers area, the LA area, that the Clippers, if they do not get the job done this year, depending on how far they go, they could end up blowing up the entire team. So Griffin, Jordan, Chris Paul, they could all end up being former Clippers at the end of this season if the Clippers don't get a result in the playoffs that they were looking for. So teams like that, technically, you could be looking at and saying that they might be interested in getting younger players, younger talent to start rebuilding themselves, unless, they end up getting a bunch of superstars to replace those superstars. But, question is, really, you're looking at two teams in LA, one that really doesn't have much of a history compared to one that does, which is why many people would prefer to play for the Lakers than play for the Clippers, in my opinion. But those guys, at some point, we got to see what Danny Ainge is going to do. This is one reason why, in my opinion, if you didn't want to make a deal for any of those big-name players, Butler, George, whatever, fine. But you damn well better make sure you're doing a deal of some sort come the offseason, because you got players like those that technically are putting up better numbers than some of our guys here on our current roster. And yeah, it's a different league, minor league and all that, so it's a totally different type of game, different situation. But those guys right now, are in a position where they can't even play for us because we got too many guys on our roster right now. And so Danny Ainge has to keep sending all our draft picks to go playing in other locations, minor leagues, other countries, things like that. Danny Ainge better not, and I repeat this, better not go drafting another player this year in this year's draft just to go putting them in a minor league, situation and letting them play, for whether it be the Celtics minor league team or letting them play internationally because of the fact that we don't got enough roster spaces for him. Trust me, you got several guys on this team who ain't doing a damn thing. Tyler Zeller, for example, the boy's making $8 million and he barely gets to play anything whatsoever. The guy makes more than Isaiah Thomas, for God's sakes, and yet he barely gets to play on the floor. So you better not be going and getting another rookie. In my opinion, if you can't get a superstar with that pick, then you go ahead and you trade it for something else that might be valuable. Maybe not a superstar, but maybe another, big name player that could be a key player off the bench, something like that. You do not go drafting another rookie just to go stashing them away for several years, hoping that the minor league will get them, will get them to actually gain the experience. And then by the time they do get the experience, you're pretty much out of the running to actually be a contender because things have completely changed and you ain't got no more assets and your top players are gone.
Yeah. And we finished those news. And again, the writers are saying that right now the Boston Celtics are number 4 in the Eastern Conference Power rankings, behind Cavaliers, Toronto Raptors, and Washington Wizards. Fine. that maybe is the truth. I can argue about it, but never mind. But one slightly information for those guys and writers that are posting those stuff at the Twitter and their blogs. The season is not starting today. Hello, we are 58 games in the season. There is 24 or 25 games respectively left in the season for example, Raptors and the Celtics. And the Celtics are having easier schedule. And they have pretty good case, Daniel, to be number 2 seeded team at the end of regulations. And I will just briefly analyze the schedule. Read the schedule of both teams, and we will conclude with the informations about the next games and the next shows of ours, Celtics Talk Radio shows, and the games that we're going to cover. Toronto Raptors schedule. They are playing Suns in Phoenix, in Canada. They will win it. New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden. Then Washington double program March 1st and March 3rd. 2 times. And Raptors are leading 1-0. Then easy game Bucks. Then New Orleans Hornets with DeMarcus Cousins in New Orleans. Then Atlanta Hawks also with addition in Phillips Arena, Atlanta. Then Miami Heat in Miami. Then Memphis Mavericks in Toronto, they will win it. Thunder in Toronto, tough game. Pistons in Auburn Hills, they can win it. Pacers in Toronto, they will win it. Then the Bulls in Toronto, it's not easy game. Anyway, Miami again in Miami. It's not easy game too. Then Mavericks again in Toronto, they will win it. Then Magic, they will win it. Then Hornets in Toronto, they will win it. Then Indiana in Toronto, favorites. 76ers favorites. Pacers in Indianapolis, not an easy game. Then Pistons in Detroit, not an easy game. Miami in Toronto, against Miami in Toronto, they are favorites. Then against the Knicks in New York for the second time. Then finally finishing the season against Cleveland Cavaliers. So they're playing Washington twice, Cleveland once. They're playing Atlanta twice, the Knicks in New York. They're playing twice in Miami. They're playing against Thunder, against New Orleans, against Bulls, against and all in all, they will be a couple of games without worry, and then this will be really tough schedule. And when we are talking about the Celtics and their schedule, the Celtics are Sunday in Detroit, then we are going in against Atlanta in Boston, then Cleveland in Garden, Lakers in Los Angeles, tricky game, then Suns in Phoenix, Clippers in Los Angeles, Warriors in Oakland, Nuggets in Denver, and Bulls in Garden, then Timberwolves in Boston, and Nets and Sixers, Washington in Boston, Pacers in Boston, Suns in Boston, Miami in Boston, Bucks in Boston, Magic in Boston, Knicks in Madison Square Garden, Cavaliers in Boston, Atlanta in Atlanta, Hornets in Charlotte, Nets, and finally Bucks. So the tough games for the Celtics are Cleveland Cavaliers twice, Atlanta, then DC in Boston, then Chicago in Boston, Golden State Warriors in Oakland, the Clippers in Los Angeles. Those are the two hardest games alongside Cleveland. So practically, let's say, even if we lose Golden State Warriors, Clippers, and Cleveland, yeah, we are playing Cleveland twice in Boston, and I hope to win at least one. We are playing Atlanta twice. We are playing Clippers. We are playing Golden State Warriors. And the rest of the pack are the teams that are sub 50%. So Toronto is playing twice with Washington, Danny, once with Cleveland, and overall they're having tough schedule. And I think that I'm putting my chances on the Celtics getting number 2 seed. If we are number 2 and Toronto number 4, they are roasted in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And with the home court advantage, we can pass Washington. And our goal is to prevent number 2 position until the end of regular season, and hopefully to add Terrence Jones, for example, as an addition in the place of, let's say, Jordan Mickey. So what do you say?
Well, that's pretty much the situation right now. That, for one, many people feel that Toronto and Washington, one of those two teams, is going to be the one that ultimately gets to face LeBron and the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics ain't really getting much respect in that situation. But it would pretty much be very interesting, especially depending on who you get to face in the first round. Now, you mentioned the schedule in this situation, how, easy the Celtics have it compared to these two teams. We also got to remember that in this situation, the Cavaliers also lost Kevin Love for an extended period. So now that's also a situation that the Celtics, forget second seed, might just easily make it to the number 1 seed for all we know. Especially if the Cavaliers, do what I said in the show recently, which is basically giving LeBron James some time to rest, just to try and make sure he's ready for the playoff run. But as of right now, there's really, only 3 games in that schedule for us that I can pretty much say odds are we are going to lose automatically, which will probably be Cleveland's 2 games and the game against Golden State. Those are the only 3 games we can pretty much say are almost guaranteed losses. But
and maybe Clippers.
Maybe Clippers, but of course the Celtics already beat the Clippers this season, so our guys have proven that they're capable of getting the job done. And of course that Clippers game will be here in Boston, or actually in LA, so it could be a different story knowing that it's on their court and they would have something a little bit more to play for at that time compared to the what's been going on now, knowing that they would be closer to the end of the season and the playoff picture would start getting put together a little bit more. But we've already proven we can beat them. We've already proven we can beat Washington. Toronto, unfortunately, we haven't really proven we can beat them with both Lowry and DeRozan in the lineup. But at the same time, they really haven't proven that they can beat us with everybody in the lineup either. So that's the only series we can say technically that hasn't really been decided as to which team truly is the better team, regardless of the 3-1 series, season series victory for the Raptors. So the Celtics, they're still in a good position, but Danny Ainge has to make a move for a big man of some sort. We need somebody that's going to be able to take that position as the 4th big man on this roster and stop forcing ourselves to be playing at a disadvantage with Jonas Jerebko playing the 4. Let Jerebko play the position that he really was made for, which is the 3 in this case. Or don't play him at all and let Jaylen Brown be the one to back up Jay Crowder at the 3 position. But you cannot continue to go into these series against these teams knowing these teams got some skilled big guys, especially if Cleveland goes and gets Bogut now. That's going to be even worse knowing they just got Deron Williams as well. You cannot continue to put yourself at a disadvantage with your size and your rotations just because of the fact that you're not willing to actually put some money on the table or make a move. We're not going to win this season. We all know that. But you are not going to help yourself get any free agents to come this way this summer if you end up getting beat in round 1 or round 2 by Toronto or Washington, knowing that people are going to say, if I can't get to go to Cleveland or I can't get to go to Golden State, why in the world should I go to Boston when I could go to Washington or maybe go to Toronto, knowing they finished with a better position than Boston in this case. So Danny Ainge, really, your whole hopes of getting a free agent this summer or max free agent are going to come down to basically if you can actually beat Toronto or Washington in the playoffs this year and get to that Eastern Conference Finals. So you better make sure you do the move you need to actually get to that position, because again, nobody's going to expect you to beat LeBron and company with the roster you have, and knowing that the NBA wants it to be Cleveland and Golden State again. So nobody's going to expect that. But at the same time, everybody is going to be watching. All these free agents, Griffin, Durant, they're all going to be watching to see what in the world were you able to do to these other two teams that basically were fighting with you to be known as the second best team in the East and one of the top 5 teams in the NBA overall record-wise. If you lose to them, you can kiss your chance of getting a max free agent goodbye, because those free agents are going to start going to Washington and Toronto instead.
We will analyze the summer, but Toronto cannot attract the free agents because even if they win the series, because they have their own issues to solve, they have now Serge Ibaka, they must re-sign Kyle Lowry, they will be over the cap, and if they re-sign long-term Serge Ibaka alongside DeRozan, that trio will be over $100 million, so they will be over the cap, and they are not going to be over the team that will go over the cap. And about Washington Wizards, I have my skepticism that Washington Wizards will be attractive free agency destination. I maybe am wrong, but about Boston, I don't think that even, let's say, if we lose in the second round, our chances will be so jeopardized to attract the maximum free agents. I think that the free agents know what Boston is doing, who is Stevens, who is Thomas, and it will be better, of course, if we make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and if we end up second seed. This will show the stability and responsibility and seriousness of the organization. But I think that practically the result will not jeopardize our chances, especially if, like you said, the team like Clippers implodes. Anyway, this is all from us. The next games are against Pistons in Palace of Auburn Hills, Detroit, Sunday 26th, 6 p.m. Eastern. Live play-by-play, 2-1 for Boston in series. Then in TD Garden, Boston against Atlanta, 1-0 for Boston. And finally, Wednesday, March 1st, 8 p.m. Eastern, Cleveland Cavaliers in TD Garden, 0-2 for Cavs this series. And we will have the next live chat after Cavaliers game, Wednesday, around 11 p.m. Eastern. And the next show is Thursday, March 2nd, 6 p.m. Eastern. I will not reveal the guest yet. And tune into our pages and you will find out on time. Our pages, Celtics Talk Radio, Twitter, STR capital letters, Celtics Talk Radio, Instagram, official page, Celtics Talk Radio, and Facebook, We Bleed Green and the Facebook. Also, subscribe to Celtics Talk Radio YouTube channel, search us at the iTunes, listen to the shows at the iTunes, Celtics Talk Radio at the iTunes, and finally, again, the new YouTube channel. I hope that tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, Sunday, this very episode number 7, live post-game video chat, Toronto Raptors 107, Boston Celtics 97 will be uploaded. And for tonight, this is it from Igor and Daniel. And final word, Danny?
Well, like you said, we didn't get the results we wanted today. But, now that the schedule's going to get a little bit easier after we only have one more game really to worry about, which is Cleveland for an extended period of time. So now's the time, like you said, to get Avery Bradley and the rest of these guys back up and healthy. And if we can do that, we'll be in a good position. You just mentioned the Washington Wizards and the Raptors got that back-to-back against each other coming up the home and home series at the start of March, which means technically if you can't beat Cleveland, then beating the Lakers the very next game pretty much is going to be really important, because then you're guaranteed to gain ground on one of those two teams in this case. So the Celtics, really got to bring it the next few days, and Avery Bradley hopefully will get back up and running, because it's going to take him some time just to work off the rust. As we know, they said he's going to play limited minutes for the first few games when he does come back, so they're going to have to get him going, because we're going to need him towards the very end of the season to make sure we stay at the very top in regards to whether we're the first seed or the second seed.
Okay, and I would end up with the thing that we must beat Detroit and Atlanta, and later, like you said, in those games, March 1st against Cleveland in Boston and Los Angeles Lakers in Los Angeles, March 3rd, we would have chance to win those games and gain the ground up at the standings. We hope to have Bradley back soon. We hope Danny Ainge will make a move for Terrence Jones. The next live post-game video chat Wednesday, March 1st, 11 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 p.m. Eastern, around that time, after Cavs game, and the next Celtics Talk Radio 159th show at blogtalkradio.com, of course, March 2nd, 6 p.m. Eastern. Until then, tune in to Weebly Green Celtics Fans Forum and Celtics Talk Radio for the latest updates, live play-by-play of every game, pre-game, post-game shows, and live video chats like this one. So until then, we wish you good night, all the best, and root for the Celtics.